Ben Shapiro is a sniveling, nasal-voiced twit. Hi, I'm Pastor Marty from the Afternoon Drive, and yes, to some of you who keep asking, I am a real pastor.
Well, you think you should call Ben Shapiro a sniveling, nasal-voiced twit?
Well, I am supposed to be honest. I am supposed to tell the truth, and, well, Ben Shapiro is a sniveling, nasal-voiced twit. There are two types of Republicans, conservatives, that really irritate me and get under my skin. The first are the rhinos. Rhinos are really nothing more than Democrats dressed in Republican drag. They talk about the fact that they're Republicans, but yet they won't stand with this president. They stand against him. They don't really stand on the conservative issues and the social issues that conservatives try to pander to the Christian right and pander to the grassroots movement among conservatism. It's how they campaign, but once they get to Washington, they govern just like a liberal. That's a rhino. The other type of conservative Republican I can't stand are the neocons. And here's what a neocon is. They're like Rambo wannabes, but in reality, they're Barney Fife. They'll talk tough. I'm sorry, in Ben's case,
I'll talk tough, but I want your son, not my son. I want you, not me, to go to war.
that's Ben Shapiro. He was some type of violin prodigy back in, I don't know, when he was like 12, and he had his own little video on YouTube when it was like first invented, and he has worked in so-called conservative media, and he's got his own little shtick now.
The Ben Shapiro Show.
Ben Shapiro was 100% opposed to Donald Trump being the president, and never gives Donald Trump any credit that he has actually governed 100 times more conservatively than a John McCain or a witness protection Romney ever would have governed had they actually been elected. And he certainly is much more conservative than any of the dillweeds that he ran against in 2016, including
Another naval voice cowboy wannabe,
Ted Cruz. That all said, Ben Shapiro attacking the president over what he felt was his wish-washy decision on Iran, that this president has horrible foreign policy. Now, I've already explained this before, that this president has had great foreign policy. Kim Jong-un isn't lobbing missiles anywhere, and we are watching the fact that this president got NATO in line, got other countries to start paying into NATO. And Ben Shapiro loves to talk about how European leaders don't like Trump. Well, of course they don't like him, because he doesn't kiss their backsides. He doesn't roll over for them and say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" He puts America first. What a novel idea. But Ben Shapiro is really upset that the president didn't wipe out Iran.
Be that as it may, the president calls it back. Now, it's his rationale that I have a problem with. And when he says 150 people were going to die and that was not proportionate, I don't know where this idiotic notion came from that if you attack the United States, we are supposed to be proportionate in our response.
I hate to cloud the issue here with facts, but Iran didn't actually, quote, attack America. They downed a unarmed surveillance drone. They're arguing it was over their airspace. Others, like the CIA, are saying, no, it was over international airspace. Was it? Was it? I mean, come on now. Was it? Was it? They shot it down. I'm not defending Iran. I think the Iranian regime is evil and horrible. But did we provoke that? Did we purposely send that drone over there with the excuse so that we could retaliate? Were we poking and prodding and provocating war? I seem to recall the United States downed an Iranian jetliner. They downed an unarmed drone. And the president said a military retaliation that takes out human life is not a fair retribution. And he's right. He's right on so many levels. The president played this exactly right. First, he said, you know what? Maybe it was one of the crazy generals over there acting rogue on his own, so we need to wait and let all the evidence come out. Now, Trump said that on purpose, because immediately those mullahs over there said, our generals do not act on their own. We ordered that. So he got Iran to admit to the world they took down our drone. The president also knows, though, if he had launched a, furious retaliation, once again, it would have put the Islamic Middle Eastern world up in arms. And we know how that would be treated even by our so-called American media. If Trump had done that, why even CNN and Nancy Botox Pelosi and Chuck E. Cheese Schumer would have talked about what a barbaric response, etc., etc., etc. So Ben Shapiro saying that the president demonstrated weakness in the face of America being attacked. America was not attacked. And by the way, Benny, here's a little clue. I know you're used to going to college campuses and debating young mushheads who don't know anything on things like, transgender fluidity. I got it. We know your little bullying techniques. And again, you are that kid that other kids wanted to beat the daylights out of at the playground, but couldn't because you were teacher's pet. Nobody's allowed to touch Benny. Don't touch Benny. We know he's a smart mouth. We know he thinks he knows everything. We know he's always tattletaling on you. But he's a good little brown noser, and he takes good care of the teacher and always bringing me stuff, so you can't touch Benny. Do you actually have a wife and family? I find that hard to believe. There was a woman actually that desperate that she couldn't find a real man, so she settled for you, Benny? I'm Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. The sniveling, nasal voice twit. But Ben, if you're going to bring up a subject like this, and I am an American patriot, and I do believe in a strong military and strong military response, but our track record over in the Middle East is not a great one. Every time we topple a regime, we make things worse. Every single time. And remember, our involvement in Iran dates back to the 1950s when we toppled a duly elected leader, put our own Shah in there so that we could keep getting cheap oil. And what happened with our putting the Shah in there? Well, eventually the Ayatollah Khomeini came along. The Shah fled for his life. And how many Americans were taken hostage for how long? Why don't you add a little perspective here, Benny, why there's this ongoing tension between us and Iran. To just simply say, they attacked us and we should obliterate them, that is disingenuous, it is dishonest, and it absolutely shows your lack of real credibility as a journalist and as a commentator.
The reason I think that's a terrible idea is because the United States actually tried something that was basically called proportionate response. It was actually called graduated escalation during the Vietnam War. It was a strategy put in place by then Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. And the strategy, which is elucidated by former Trump National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster in his book, Dereliction of Duty. The book is all about how Robert McNamara and the LBJ administration blew the Vietnam War by engaging in this graduated escalation. The idea was that we would gradually turn up the heat on the Vietnamese, on the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, until they realized that we were very serious about this, and then they would back down. But that's not really how military conflict works. The reason that people don't want to get involved with you in military conflict is because they are afraid you will devastate them. Not that you will gradually turn up the heat, but that you will devastate them. The fact is that if Iran knows that they can trade basically an unmanned U.S. drone for nothing, right? The United States is not going to retaliate in any way. Do you think they're going to stop pushing?
Well, Ben, I hate to correct your revisionist history, but please allow me to correct your revisionist history. You're making an apple-oranges comparison here. Well, we can't do escalated warfare with Iran. That doesn't work. Look how it failed in Vietnam. You're right. You're right. It did fail in Vietnam. But there's a big difference between Vietnam and Iran. Can anybody in the class tell me what it is?
Ooh, Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter.
Yes, Horshack, yes. We were actually at war with Vietnam. Last time I checked, we're not at war with Iran. It's not a good situation. It's not a good relationship. We certainly don't want them getting nuclear weapons. But we're not actually at war with Iran. We were at war with Vietnam. And we lost a lot of lives needlessly there. Now, on some facets, we can look at Vietnam as a failure. We involved ourselves in another country's civil war. Yet, if you want to consider it this way, communism has never again successfully been able to invade and overtake militarily another country since our involvement in Vietnam. So on that level, you have success. What would have made it a resounding success in the minds of the American people, and even turncoat traitor commies like Walter Cronkite could have gone on the evening news and said it was an actual victory, would have been when we finally committed that we were in Vietnam and we were in it to win it. You unleash a devastating, deadly, lethal force, and you leave nothing, including a shrub, alive. Once you make the commitment to go to war, yes, you leave nothing but devastation. Destroy the will of the people, the enemy, to want to fight back. You have to destroy it. And escalated warfare does not work.
You're right, Benny. You're right on that one. But we're not at war with Iran.
We're not at war with them. Secondly, you're lying. Trump did do something to Iran. It's called sanctions. And some of these sanctions are devastating. They're crippling. In fact, some of the sanctions that we put on Iran, we could almost say, even as an American patriot, denying their citizens medicine, medical necessities. But it's part of our blockade. Nothing gets in. Crippling sanctions. But you say we did nothing? They knocked down a drone. We have hit them with more sanctions. That's something. And it's not the loss of life, because there was no loss of life on our end either, Benny.
If you want to stop this thing in its tracks, you do have to show the Iranians that if things get real, the Ayatollahs are not only not going to be in charge of Iran anymore, they are not going to be breathing anymore.
Well, someday we're going to have to go over there and kill them.
What a sad, sad little man you are. And yes, there probably is going to come the day we're going to have to deal with Iran. Then again, with our current president and his ability at foreign policy, we all thought we would be at war with Korea right now. We're not. There is always the possibility, Ben, there could be a negotiation, a real one. Not the kind of negotiation that Barack Obama and Lurch John Kerry put together, where basically we gave the Iranians everything they wanted, including a hoard of cash, and they got to keep their nuclear capabilities. And like Donald Trump said, we are the biggest dummies on the planet when it has come to negotiating. But I do believe this president, that if Iran continues to take steps toward obtaining a nuclear weapon and developing that, he will, at that point, obliterate them. I give you a word. ISIS. Where are they now? Deep frying in hell. So, Benny Shapiro, why don't you go play? Why don't you go find something else to do? Leave politics, policy, and especially foreign policy to those of us that actually have a working intellect and understand how it actually works. Take your little nasal voice and do something constructive, like, I don't know, test nose sprays for pharmaceutical companies. Whatever you do, stop doing politics, because you have an amazing track record of being wrong on everything. That's it. Thanks for watching this video. Please hit the like button, share it to Ben's social media. He'll love that. And make sure you help us get the word out. Let's get our subscriptions up. We've lost a couple subscriptions. Once again, YouTube messing with our algorithm. They just don't like to play nice. And help us keep getting the word out, especially as we get into now the full 2020 election cycle. Give us a like and smack the bell to get my next rant.